Here is your radio host, Joel Markell, president and founder of Preferred Home Healthcare and Nursing Services, and co-host Mary Ann Levy.
Join us. John, thank you for being with Preferred Company today.
It's a pleasure.
Now, John, I know that we've invited you on to talk about abandoned property, which is both serious and fun, in my opinion, because we all love to find things that we didn't know belonged to us, particularly when it comes to assets, abandoned assets. We're going to get to that. However, you are coming to me at such an interesting time because I have learned a little bit what LegacyBackup is. You know what? Instead of me explaining it, you being an expert in LegacyBackup, tell me what that is. You actually have a paid subscription going, and I would love to hear both about the website and how you help people just from going on the internet, and also the paid subscription and what that's about.
Thank you. There's two websites, actually. The paid subscription service is predefined templates. And so there's all kinds of tabs out there for bank accounts, insurance, investments, and your online accounts and passwords and all of that good stuff. And people can fill out as much information as they like. And then you tell your family, should anything happen to me, it's all in one place. They know where to go, and you avoid that horrendous scavenger hunt that could occur. LegacyBackup is totally free, and I have information out there based on my experiences with identity theft, today's topic of abandoned property, and the basics of how to organize your personal information.
Now, the paid subscription, let's say, for instance, I want for my children to know where my safety deposit box is. I would imagine that's something that's included in your...
Yes.
Okay. I would imagine that a copy of the will or one's living will, those things would be part of which one, LegacyBackup or paid subscription, pardon me, or both?
It would be part of my LegacyBackup. That's the website where you store your information. We don't actually store the copies of the will. What I focus on is three dimensions: what, where, and who. So you document heavily what you have, but secondly, and very important too, is where is it located? To know that somebody has a will is great, but if you don't know where it is, you still have to go through that scavenger hunt. And then the who, you have to make sure that you tell people. So that's the three dimensions of this.
I want to ask you this because this is a true story going on in my home right now. My mother-in-law passed away over Memorial Day weekend.
Sorry.
She by no means had a large estate. Okay, not an estate that's going to have to go through probate, or I would call it simple, and I don't know the legal term for it, but it's very straightforward. There wasn't a whole lot there. My wife, Stephanie, cannot find the original will. She has copies of it. She's got a copy of it that is notarized. Now, you did not come in here today prepared to discuss this, but what does somebody like my wife do when they can't find a signed will?
Well, let me start off by, I am not an attorney, so
Understood.
This is all unofficial, but I would advise her to go to the county surrogate's office for advice. But if there's no property in the way of titles or deeds, I have heard that you don't even need to file the will. You can just settle things and call it a day. I'm not sure how true that is.
So, had my mother-in-law known about you, once again, our guest today is John Sieber, whose website is LegacyBackup.com. Had she been following you, which could have been a possibility, John, you're saying that my wife at least would have been able to go back and see where this will was.
Yes, because
Okay.
one of the detailed items when you're documenting your legal documents, you specify the location. Another good example of that would be some people might have a safe, but where's the key to the safe, or what's the combination to the safe?
You're talking about in the home, outside the home, or both?
Either, yes.
Either. Now, just quickly, because we're coming up on the news, and I am going to ask you politely to stay put, because I've hardly touched upon everything that I want to speak to you about. What is the paid subscription about?
Well, it's $59 for the first year, and then
Okay.
half that amount for the annual. And so for a low cost, you basically log on to a secure site where you put all this information in there. And as I said, they're predefined templates. So based on our experience, we have lots of suggested things you can document.
Okay, John, I am going to ask you politely to stay put. I know that you're busy, but I'm going to ask you to donate a few more minutes to Marianne and myself today. We are speaking to John Sieber. John, myself, Marianne, and everybody else at Preferred Company will be back.
Back to Preferred Company with your hosts, Joe Markel and Marianne Levy.
I Preferred Home Healthcare. You're in Preferred Company.
John Sieber today, right here in Preferred Company. Before we get to the fun part of your visiting us today, which is abandoned property and finding money that we didn't even know we had, John, I want to ask you this. LegacyBackup or LegacyBackup.com, does that mean that you actually have electronic filing, or is this kept by the individual themselves?
Well, the subscription service is located at the other site, which is mylegacybackup.com.
Okay.
And that is electronic filing. It's out in the cloud. It's secure. From any location, you can log on and put your information in, and you can tell your family where the account is, so that they don't have to have that scavenger hunt.
Let me ask you a question that may not be your favorite question today, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you ever afraid that somebody may hack into this site?
Absolutely. I'm not afraid because I've been a victim of identity theft myself. And I always tell people, if they can hack Home Depot and Target and the IRS and banks, I can't guarantee that I won't be hacked either. So what I do is I advise people on how to store information so that if I were hacked, the hacker would get nothing. For example, you don't want to store online your full credit card number and PIN number. Instead, you store what bank it's at, you store maybe 6 digits of your account number, but more importantly, you store the 800 number of the bank itself. So if anything happens, you can go right down the list and get to protecting your information before the thief does.
Okay, so once again, in order for our listener friends to take advantage of that, it's mylegacybackup.com.
Yes.
Did you create this?
Yes. It's based on my life experiences and my background in building financial systems.
Joel, I have a question, if I could
Sure.
butt in for a second. How do the loved ones or the people know to go to you unless these people that have signed up with you have already told them?
Well, that's their responsibility. That's part of it.
Okay.
So when you designate a power of attorney or an estate executor, you need to tell them what that job's going to entail.
Okay.
And you also want to tell them what you've done ahead of time for them to help them.
Okay, all right, because I was just thinking if someone's just storing all this stuff and not telling anybody, then it's absolutely useless.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's the who.
I could see Mary and I doing a complete show about how we lost the password.
Absolutely. Easily, without a doubt.
Yeah, my mother is 95, and she is always telling me information about herself. And I can't remember it all. I can't expect anybody else to remember it all.
Right.
So it's important to document this stuff.
And if your mother not you, but if one's mother didn't particularly like them, she just gives them the wrong password and they have to work through it for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, you send them on a scavenger hunt.
Scavenger hunt. There you go.
10 years of trying to figure this out.
Actually, a real sad story. One of my neighbors passed away unexpectedly, a guy in his late 40s of a fatal heart attack.
Ugh.
And when that happened, his family had no idea where anything was, if he had insurance, where the investment's located. So it's experiences like that that motivated me to build the site.
Well, I'm in love with the idea. Being in home healthcare, I have to tell you that I see what happens with adult children when their parents do pass on. And this is wonderful because it's almost as if they have a very clean file somewhere that's so easily found, and it's all ready for the adult children to go to and get all of this information without having to run around to different places.
Yes, the subscriber can sleep at night, and their family can sleep at night, because if you have that scavenger hunt, you never know if you missed something.
Speaking of which, we're going to get to the next topic, which I have been waiting for the last couple of weeks, knowing that you were going to be here. I have seen with my own eyes listener friends, particularly one listener friend, who found an enormous amount of money in what we call abandoned property. John, could you tell us what the definition of abandoned property?
Well, it's called either abandoned property or unclaimed property. And years ago, or even to this date, you may see the ads listings in the newspaper of abandoned property that the state puts out there. Basically, when you forget to cash a check, or if you lose a check, or you forget about a bank account, that money doesn't go away. It stays out there forever. And so you can easily get it back. And there's a very simple process, which we'll talk about now. My background was in the corporate world. I managed the checkbooks reconciliation at AT&T, among other places. And think about what you have to do when you reconcile your own personal checking account, and now multiply that by millions and millions. But from the corporate side, the commercial site, you had to turn that money over to the state after a certain amount of time. So there's 50 states times 50 rules times it varies depending on the type of check. So it's extremely complex. The beauty is that if you go to New Jersey's website, under the Treasury Department, you'll see information on abandoned property. New Jersey had made our life easier. You don't even need to write this down. Instead, New Jersey is partnered with many other states, and you go to one-stop shopping at missingmoney.com. And all of this information is documented out on LegacyBackup.com.
Excuse me one second. Joel, do you remember me talking about missingmoney.com? And a listener friend came up to us at one of the expos and said, what did she get, like $500,000 or something from her mother's estate?
An enormous sum of money. And ever since then, I take this very seriously.
Well, I got about $800 back. I had no idea what it was from my first married name. And that's like when you go to this, if especially a woman, you put in any name, any way it could have been
put your
printed.
maiden name in, any previous names.
Different spellings.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can put in deceased relatives, because that money is still out there. It never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Marianne, John, yesterday, and honestly, I forgot that John was going to be with us today talking about unclaimed property.
Right.
Yesterday, I happened to glance at checks that were going out. These were paychecks that were never picked up. Now, obviously, we call these people to tell them that their paycheck is still sitting with us. I'll be in. I saw one paycheck, John, Marianne, listener friend. I saw one paycheck for $2,400. How does anybody not pick up a check for $2,400 unless they are so rich? John, my question is this. We were mailing it to the state because that's what we have to do. How long does the state have to hold it before it becomes theirs in New Jersey?
Well, it stays out there forever. So a good example of this is I was telling my best man about this, and I've been married almost 40 years. So he was over visiting, and I logged on. We looked his name up, and lo and behold, there's a check out there for him from 35 years ago when he lived in Elizabeth. So he went through the process, and he got his money. It doesn't go away. And anybody that's really fascinated by this can go to the website. The official website is unclaimed.org. If people would like additional information.
And they don't charge you,
this.
right, John?
No.
If somebody's going to charge you to look for something, you don't walk, you run away from this. This is absolutely free.
Yes. Ambulance chaser lawyers will go after people to try to get a 30% finder's fee. Mm-hmm. And I always tell my friends and clients, you don't have to pay anybody. You can just get it yourself.
Right.
So if you go out onto missingmoney.com, you don't have to divulge any personal information. You put in your last name, and that's the extent of it if you want. You can be more specific if you like by identifying a specific state or your first name. But if you start off generically, it'll drill down, and you'll be surprised to see other family members perhaps that have.
Yes, I've found them.
So it's missingmoney.com. And it'll tell you, in some cases, the extent of it, whether it's over or under $100. Sometimes they don't disclose it, but it's fascinating. I used to. By the way, Joel, I looked you up, and you don't have any money out there. I'm sorry.
Shocking.
But
I do have a question, though.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for doing that for me. But I have to tell you, I'm more, I would say, on top of my finances, so it would have to be a relative of mine who was not. But you can be sure that my kids will not be going to Missing Money one day and find anything of mine. But here's my question. My question is, we have listener friends who tune into Marianne and myself every single morning, but they wouldn't have a clue as to how to get to missingmoney.com. Because they're up there in years and they're just not computer savvy. How can somebody still look for missing money if they don't have a computer?
Well, they should either ask family members or friends that do have computer access to do it. Or perhaps they go to a library. And if you go to the library, you might be able to get someone to assist you there.
Are there people who get paid for doing this kind of search?
I don't know. And ideally, it would be better if they didn't have to pay anybody.
That I understand, but
Yes.
I do think of our listener friends who are homebound, don't really have friends that are willing to go to the library or able to go to the library for them. So I was hoping that there's either a phone number or a paid person that would go and do this work for them, even if they got a percentage of what they found. But maybe that will be, maybe I've just given somebody an idea.
Sure. I'd suggest, too, that if they have a visitor, if they're homebound, if they have a visitor that has a smartphone, they could find out very easily while they're visiting.
Very good idea.
Like I'm doing right now.
Exactly.
I'm double checking mine again because you go back. I mean, obviously I have nothing left up here, but well.
Well, just as I checked for Joel, when I gave this in my hometown, I used the mayor as an example, and he has missing money.
Really?
And then if you want to put in Barack Obama, and you'll see that he's got missing money.
Why doesn't somebody tell him? Why doesn't he claim it?
Yeah.
Right?
So.
I'm not going to even go there. But John, I want to ask you this because I want to end this segment with. Before I say thank you to you, I want to end it with a little bit of fun. What's the largest amount you've ever seen?
Well, just within my family, I was helping my elderly aunt who had dementia, and I was cleaning out some old dresser drawers one day, and I stumbled upon 3 bank books. Each of them was $50,000.
Wow.
So that certainly pays for the subscription to my site.
Now, here, let me ask you this. Again, everything just so interesting to me in this segment today, in this interview today. Here's somebody with 3 bank books that has dementia. Who can go and claim this money?
Well, as her power of attorney, I was able to bring them back into the bank, present them, and get them updated. And then they remained live. And then, just as you would when the time came to settle her estate, I was the executor, so I was able to take care of that.
Very, very interesting, and I'm sure very helpful to many of our listeners, because so many people, particularly of that era, have bank books in a drawer with their unmentionables.
Yes.
And that's the way people lived. John Sieber, I want to thank you for being with Marianne and myself today on Preferred Company. Once again, the website is LegacyBackup.com or MissingMoney.com, which is not your website, but a handy website for any of us. And the paid subscription is MyLegacyBackup.com.
And should anybody be interested in MyLegacyBackup.com, I set up a special promo code today so that they could get to it at half price. If they just use the promo code Preferred Radio, they'll be able to save $30.
So it's Preferred Radio today to save $80 on what I think is a very, as I said, my family is going through this right now. And of course, had my mother-in-law known about you, I think our story is going to end up just fine, but it would have saved us a lot of work.
Yes.
So, John Sieber, thank you for being with us. It was a lot of fun and a lot of interesting facts that you brought to Preferred Company today.